As a mostly vegan, I eat a teensy-weensy little bit of egg noodle mixed in with my other noodles when I make a pot of noodles. Um, but I've been a vegan most of my life, and I was or conceived into a vegan family, a vegan household. But unfortunately, we were also alcoholics, so my physiology is not fully developed at birth, and so I have various health problems. I was pretty sickly as a child and pretty much was disgusted with it. And then started to had to take matters into my own hands. By the time I was 15, I realized, and I've been pursuing it on and off, self-study, learning from other people ever since. And one of the things I remember very vividly from what my mother told me, because my father died when I was still a baby, um, he was quite bitter. And even on my maternal side, my mother's mother, my maternal grandmother, did have a problem with bitterness in her older years. And it's not uncommon among senior citizens to be bitter, grumpy, cranky. Why is that? And we never bothered to ask the question. Well, whenever I did try to ask it to myself, the only guess estimate I could make was that, well, they're constipated. I don't know. But that may be true. But there's something else about them that might be true by comparison to young people. We know that older people are less likely to be flexible, not just physically, but also mentally, their attitude. And I know that's certainly my case as I've gotten older. I'm 62, and I tend to be cranky and bitter and grumpy and and very stiff. I can barely touch my toes if I'm lucky. Um, yeah, I can't do yoga asanas like when I was younger. Well, I can't do them at all. I don't even bother. I do have to arch my back once in a while from sitting too much. I don't. I have a problem with my posture, sitting and walking. But be that and my neck, be that as it may. One of the discoveries 60 years ago by Stanley Jacobs was the compound known as MSM, Mary Samuel Mary, not to be confused with MMS, the chlorine item of interest, but MSM, a sulfur oxygen composition that actually is very similar to vitamin C and hemoglobin. All three of them share one thing in common, and that is the ability to carry oxygen in the bloodstream. Now, MSM is water soluble and readily flushes out through the kidneys and whatnot, so it doesn't linger in the blood very long, unlike hemoglobin stays for a fairly long time. It's designed to do so. But, dating back even to the 1950s and maybe earlier, I can recall it was quite popular to have TV ads, Geritol, do you have iron-tired blood? You need to take more iron. You need Geritol. Well, that doesn't help, because if you can't build blood, in all likelihood, you don't need more iron because it's not going to help you because you're not going to build more blood anyway. You need more oxygen. But if you're not building more blood, you're not going to carry more oxygen anyway, so what do? Well, MSM and vitamin C, when they're in the bloodstream, they actually can carry oxygen momentarily while they're in the blood. So they can actually take some of the burden off of the red blood cells to do some of their job for them on their behalf so that they don't have to carry all the weight. And you end up getting a boost of oxygen. So you don't have to sleep in an oxygen tank like Michael Jackson would do every night. Well, he was in pain. Why was he in pain? Because he had a burn accident doing a Pepsi-Cola commercial. And it scalded him, and he had all this pain. So, MSM is great for inflammatory pain. Well, isn't bitterness a type of inflammatory pain of the brain? Of the attitude? I never thought of this. I knew there was a pitta problem, Ayurveda, too much heat, right? Not enough digestion, and it's all going to the head. All the heat's going to the head instead of in the stomach where it belongs. All of it in the passion, in the feelings. Anyway, MSM is meant to, for instance, people who have arthritis, like James Coburn, the actor who is now deceased, he had arthritis in his fingers that was very painful, and he took MSM religiously because it helped him alleviate the pain. Didn't cure him of his arthritic pain, or his arthritis for that matter, but it did alleviate the pain so that he could live, and even work without the excruciating pain. When he was younger, he probably didn't have arthritis, but when he got older, he certainly had it. So MSM is good for inflammatory pain, but it has a bitter taste, and in Ayurveda there are 6 flavors. And in Western, medicine, let's say, we only recognize 4: sweet, salty, bitter, and sour. Well, the Ayurvedic point of view from India, next door to China, they had to add 2 additional tastes: the astringent taste, which is like celery, and the pungent taste, such as spices. And I can understand spices, sort of, but astringent I can't really understand. But bitter, they suggest, okay, maybe you should take a bitter herb or a bitter fruit, like bitter melon. And bitter melon is very popular among Asians because it grows in Asia, basically, India, China, whatever, that area. And it's meant to help the immune system, to bolster the immune system. Somehow the bitterness helps. Well, I don't know if MSM bolsters the immune system. I know it's an analog to DMSO. And so it helped because the way MSM carries oxygen is that it chemically shifts back and forth between DMSO and MSM while it's in the bloodstream. Now, DMSO is very unstable, and it's lacking in oxygen, but it can take on oxygen and become MSM and carry it around. So MSM already has the oxygen. It can give it up to cells who need it, and then go back to the lungs and pick up some more while it's still in the bloodstream. So that's how it functions. And DMSO, we know, is a kind of a chelating agent of sorts for light molecules and atoms, making it easier to absorb them through the skin, and just in general. It makes the whole body very porous when you take DMSO. I don't take DMSO because I don't need to most of the time. I keep it on hand, but I don't use it. But MSM, I haven't been in a habit of using, except maybe sometimes a capsule. I'm not in the habit of using it. It might be because I'm so bitter, because I'm missing one good habit in my life to change. And up until now, I've lacked the motivation to do something about my bitterness. I'm a bitter person. I have a lot of bitterness about the things that have happened to me in the last several years, and I haven't gotten over. And I hold it against myself and everybody else. I'm angry at anybody who helps me, who wants to help. It's like, that's nuts. That's crazy. But I'm that bitter. So I have stumbled on this methodology on how to get myself to take MSM, because if I take it in enough substantial quantity, not just a little tiny sprinkle on my cereal, but I'm talking about a tablespoon, a heaping tablespoon, like what you see in front of you. And by the way, here's a picture of a jar of this stuff, and let's blow it up. See, I'm sorry, my sports camera doesn't work, so it works, but I can't transfer the files to my computer to upload them to the internet, so I'm sorry I can't do videotaping. I'm too poor to buy a new camera anyway. Send me money. Go to paypal.me.Vignansi and give me money, and maybe I'll go and ask me to go buy a digital camera. They don't come cheap. Anyway, the MSM stands for methyl sulfonyl methane. Okay, and I always buy it in the crystals and in the pure crystals encapsulated in veggie caps. Well, I figured out how to take it in cereal. My idea of cereal at my age is bran and apple juice and applesauce. But now that I add MSM, see, MSM is also a stool softener. Let me tell you some of the other benefits of MSM. There's so many benefits. Marty Zucker wrote a whole book about it in conjunction with Stanley Jacobs. MSM is a stool softener, so that helps with constipation. So that, I guess I was right about cranky old people being constipated. That's partly true, but I didn't realize it's an oxygen deficiency of the bloodstream. that young people, little children, do not possess the problem of. And it's also a lack of suppleness, a lack of flexibility. Well, young people are very flexible. And it has a lot to do with the sulfur. You know, a lot of people, they try to make up for lack of sulfur in their diet by eating protein, you know, meat, animal protein, because that tends to have a lot of sulfur in it. Beans are also a protein food loaded with sulfur, but it's not enough sulfur. And it doesn't have oxygen incorporated into that compound. It's not an oxygen carrier. So it lacks what I need. I need something more potent. I need something more than just more sulfur in my diet, because I could take a bath in Epsom salt, and it's relaxing, but it's not the same thing. And oxygen is the missing ingredient, oxygen with sulfur together, because it's really the oxygen that's the problem, the lack of oxygen. Well, it tastes pretty horrible to add it to cereal. So my cereal in the morning is apple juice, applesauce, bran, wheat bran, not oats, not rice, but wheat bran. And I have to toast the wheat bran because there's enough yeast in the bin where I go to the health food store locally to buy the wheat bran. There's enough yeast living there because it's raw bran. It's just sitting there at room temperature or supermarket temperature. God knows what temperature it was in the warehouse before it got to the supermarket. And so I've noticed a lot of bloat and gas and indigestion and a lack of appetite for several hours afterwards. So I thought, you know, I got to do something about this. So I toast it now. I put it on a cookie sheet and toast it in the oven at 220 degrees for about an hour or two. I don't want to burn it. I just want to sterilize it. So I'm not trying to cook it. I just want to kill all the pathological microorganisms, particularly yeast. And that has worked really good for me. And then I store it in the freezer once it's cooled off. So I keep it in the freezer. Okay, so I don't put too much to make cereal. Mostly it's juice and applesauce. But I need something with fiber, and bran works for me. Hey, what can I say? I used to have enough teeth to eat a raw apple, and I would make a whole meal out of raw apples, and that was no problem helping me have bowel movements. Raw apples, but I just can't eat them anymore. I can't eat salad. Everything has to be mushy food. So, pre-chewed. I'm losing my teeth. Anyway, and not due to lack of fluoride in my toothpaste. It's due to grinding my teeth at night and eating lots of raw carrots when I was a very youngster teenager because it wore off the enamel on my molars. And once the enamel goes, you can kiss your teeth goodbye. It's just a matter of time before they wither away and disappear. And I'm actually accelerating it now, which is good because they're rotting. I have to get rid of them. So they are falling out at an accelerated pace. I won't tell you how I do it, but leave it at that. Once you get rid of the enamel, you're going to lose them. You can't, unless you re-enamel your teeth somehow, you know, artificially with plastic or whatever they used. I don't know if they do it. I'm not a big fan of dentists, so I wouldn't know if they can re-enamel teeth. Usually they cap it, I think. They don't re-enamel it. But that's all it needs is a protective covering to protect it from bacteria and acids, acidic food. And once it's protected, it's fine. It'll stay there. You don't need to brush your teeth. You don't need fluoride. You don't need the Listerine. All you need is your enamel to remain intact. And enamel is impervious to acid. It's impervious to bacteria, but it is not impervious to grinding. We're not cows, so we're not supposed to grind our food with our teeth. We're supposed to use machines to do that for us. Anyway, how did I get off topic here? I don't know. Anyway, so, oh yeah, I was making my cereals. So I might or might not add sugar, but I do add salt to help flavor the MSM. Oh, I love salt. I put salt on my food. I keep the salt shaker handy. Sea salt, of course. And lemon. Salt and lemon, the two things an alcoholic will want to take with his tequila, or her tequila. And wouldn't you know it, they help MSM go down. So it works. What can I say? I also add other things, supplements or herbs. I put all kind of potpourri of things in my cereal, when I Usually do. Usually, yeah, I won't get into the list. It's a long list. But these are the three basic essentials now. MSM, salt, and lemon, along with, of course, the fruity base. We all want fruity, sugary flavors in our cereal, right? But I don't use cereal. I use bran, wheat bran, toasted or pasteurized, I should say, wheat bran. Sorry, I don't have a picture of that. I didn't prepare ahead of time. Because it's not important. You get what you use the cereal of your choice. This is just what I put on my cereal, and that's all I really need to talk about. But the MSM is important because it helped. It right away I could see once I stepped it up. For the last few days I was using like half a teaspoon, and I thought, no, I'm pretty serious with this bitterness problem. I really got to get over it. Maybe what's missing in my diet? Is it beeswax? I don't know. Maybe I should make some beeswax oil. Melt it later on today. But in the meantime, I'm hungry. I gotta have breakfast. So what do I? Oh, I gotta have my cereal. Maybe I should try putting on a little more MSM and see if that does me any good. And you know what? Right away, I felt like $1,000,000. I felt so happy and so contented and so lacking in the bitterness that wants to make me cry that I would even want to be bitter, because it's a nasty pit. A hell of a pit to fall into, and a hell of a problem to crawl out of once you've fallen into it, because it's like, how do I get out of this pit? It's a nasty pit to fall into. It's horrible. And I can see why I've had visions of dying very suddenly and very painfully, because I make a lot of people angry, because bitterness drives me to pursue free energy. Otherwise, because what do they say? What did Charlie Lutz always say? Give help where you see it needs to be done, but only because don't give help where it's not wanted, unless of course it's a close friend of yours and you care about them and you see they need your help, but they don't know enough to ask. But otherwise, don't bother. Don't do it, because when somebody doesn't want it, they're just gonna throw it off anyway. It's a waste of time. So here I am trying to figure out a solution to my car's energy problem, because it has all these dead batteries. It's an electric car. And the only way to solve it, because nobody wants to fix it, is to redo the design characteristics of an electric car. Do away with the humongous battery pack and just go back to the single battery under the hood that all cars have, whether they're gas or diesel or soybean oil driven, biodiesel or electric. They all have a little battery, a single battery under the hood to power the radio and the lights. And then they have this huge battery pack, usually in the rear or underneath the passenger compartment. And the battery pack in my car is 1,100 pounds. 24 12-volt, 100 amp hour batteries, nickel metal hydride batteries. It's humongous. And as of a year ago, 9 out of the 24 batteries in that pack were dead. 15 were dying. I have no idea what condition it's in now. The rest of the car is in mint condition, but it can't drive. Car computer says, sorry, no can do, and it shuts down in less than 30 seconds if you try to start it up. Now that I haven't been driving it, the auxiliary battery under the hood is totally dead, even though I bought it. It was brand new. I've never used it because I've never driven it. And now it won't even take a charge. So all the batteries are in terrible condition. So it was only because of that I tried to solve it in a way that might work without having to replace the car, because I really am attached to that car. It's a classic 2002 RAV4 EV. Who Killed the Electric Car, the movie. It's in there, and in fact, well, I don't want to brag, so we'll leave it at that. My car has a few bragging rights, but we'll leave it at that. I'm the third owner. It's a used car. I bought it. Anywho, so the only way to solve it has been to come up with a solution to this electrical engineering ignorance, mental block, a collective mental block that all of the whole planet has on electrical engineering, saying, oh no, free energy doesn't exist. Well, no, they do know it exists. It's called reactance, and there's plenty of it. You just can't use it, so they say. I figured out not only how to create it effortlessly, but how to put it to good use, how to convert it. Because whenever you have something other than a positive power factor. Now I'm getting technical. Sorry. For those who are technical minded, that you'll know what I'm saying. For anything other than a positive power factor of alternating current, you have to convert it back to positive power factors so your consumer appliance can use it, like an electric car. Well, I figured out how to create all that reactive power and convert it in humongous quantities for less than a microwatt of input, up to half a gigawatt of output for resistive loads, like a light bulb or a heater, or 50,000 watts for a DC coil load, an inductive load, something like for a DC motor. It could be converted into an AC at a certain cost, so you won't have 50,000 watts to work with. But be that as it may, 50,000 is pretty close to what my car runs on. My car runs on 67,000 watts of power from the battery, and it drains the batteries pretty quick. It's a heavy car. So I figured all that out, but nobody wants to know about it. Nobody cares. Nobody thinks it's possible, it's practical, it's doable, whatever. They make all these excuses, and yet I take the simulator as my authority because the simulator is a robot. And MicroCap Simulator is an artificially intelligent robot. It actually can figure out how I put things on the schematic, which way I orient the coils. Do I turn them horizontal? Do I turn them vertical? It actually knows which way I turn them when I lump two or more coils together magnetically, when I group them, when I connect them magnetically. This is not a transformer situation. Just a bunch of coils, you magnetically put them close enough together that they share their magnetic fields and transfer and communicate with each other magnetically, not electrically, because there's no wires connecting them necessarily. And it actually knows which way I rotate those coils. And I've seen this happen before. This is just the latest example. MicroCap is a $5,000 simulator if you buy it fully registered. I use the demo version, the trial version for free, and I've been using it ever since I downloaded it several years ago because I can't afford to pay any money for that simulator. But the fact is it's only the high-priced spreads, so to speak, the high-priced simulators that actually conform to reality. And the only other simulator that I know of that you cannot be bought, you have to be born with it, was Nikola Tesla's brain. He had a simulator for a brain. If you buy his book on Amazon, his autobiography, he actually wrote his autobiography. It costs just a couple dollars. It's really cheap. It's worth the read. It's very short, very tiny book. Anybody, non-electrical engineer, could understand it. It's very neat. And in there, he says that he was born with such a vivid imagination, he would be classified as a little mental, because he literally thought his imagination, his fantasy were real, that he could reach out and touch it. He thought it was that real. He was convinced. He was so convinced of his fantasies that one day when he was a child, he leaped off his parents' home, the roof of his parents' home, holding nothing but an umbrella, convinced he would fly. Of course, he got a rude awakening, and he had to rest in bed and recuperate for quite a lengthy time to recover from his injuries. But he learned an important lesson, and that wasn't the only time something like that happened. But eventually what he decided to do was to discipline his mind. And through self-discipline, many years of self-discipline, by the time he was a young man, his brain was so capable of simulating any mechanical device or electrical or both with such proficient accuracy that he could design a motor, run it for a week in his brain, turn it off, take it apart, and look for wear and tear down to the, hundredths of an inch, thousandths of an inch, or whatever, and then redesign it so as not to get so much wear and tear. And when he would design any kind of device in his brain like this, and this is the only way he did it, he was not an electrical engineer by today's standards by any means. He would give the instructions to his lab assistant and tell him, okay, now build it this way. And it worked the first time, every time. So I take the simulator to be my authority because it's the only authority I have. I have no formal training in electrodynamic theory whatsoever. Sorry I'm off topic, but I can't help it. It's what fills my days. I don't think about anything. I don't think about lemons. I think about electrodynamics and how obfuscated electrical engineers are to themselves, in that they actually know free energy exists. It's called, when the new age, nomenclature people, start using the word radiant energy, because Tesla used it, because they didn't have the terminology that electrical engineers have today. So he had to call it something, so he called it radiant energy. Well, everybody keeps calling it radiant energy, not knowing what they're saying is the same thing what traditional, conventional electrical engineers call reactive power. It's the same thing. In other words, it's considered to be useless except for one thing only: to borrow it temporarily to energize coils. And then you give it back to the source at the end of each cycle, AC cycle. But you can't spend it. You can't even light up a light bulb with it. All you can do is borrow it to help reduce your energy cost. So you do save a little. So there is some economy gained by making use of reactive power, but it's very limited for that purpose alone. You can't drive and go any kind of distance with it, because that would be spending something you cannot spend unless you convert it. And that's the oversight. The fact is, reactive power is in abundance. It is the primary energy in our universe, is reactive power. Not the stuff that we create. The stuff that we create that our appliances need is actually a fraction of the total energy in the universe, is actually reactive power that cannot be used. And yet it's there to energize things, but it cannot be spent. But that's the dominant energy in the universe. And there's so much of it. And it's so easy to create. It's so easy. My God, you have no idea how inefficient, non-efficient electrical devices are, because so much of the energy they create is reactive power which cannot be used, and instead it's dissipated as heating or something that gets in the way, and they got to get rid of it and hopefully not create too much of it, because it creates congestion, energetic congestion in the circuitry. So it's really. And so that's why we pay through the nose for electrical energy, because we're dundleheads. I hate to use the word, but we're dundleheads. We do things so not efficiently. And we keep telling ourselves, well, it's the only way we could do it. There was a commercial back in the 80s, and they would take a break for lunch, the office people, and they go, where do we go? Same place. What do we eat? Same food. And they'd do it in a monotone, and it was supposedly, oh, go to Denny's or something, and enjoy yourselves for a change, But instead they were just, they were taking, well, that's kind of the way the profession is of electrical engineering. It's trapped. It's trapped in boundaries of ideology. So when I deal with that kind of mentality with people, I get a little frustrated. I get a little cranky. And I get really angry too. And there's no cause for it, really. Because it won't be till I die, literally, that anything I do will be taken seriously. I might as well forget it. I don't know how to let go. See, I have to let go for people to accept what I'm doing. And I can't. Why? Because I'm bitter. So maybe if I'm lucky, I'll be able to let go before I die, and get the pleasure, a very distant, aloof pleasure, because I won't care anymore, right? I will have let go of vicariously seeing other people satisfy themselves in an area that I used to concern me to a great degree. But while it concerns me, no one's going to take me seriously at all, and I'm going to continue to hold this concern all to myself as I develop it further. But right now, I can't develop it. It's finished. All I can do is develop the communication of it. So I can't help but talk about it, even though I want to talk about MSM and lemons and sea salt on cereal. I can't help myself, because that's what creates all my stress. I create my own stress. It's bitter. It's hateful. Yet I got to find a way around it. And usually, I always try to take the dietary approach, because I was born sickly, incapable of handling a lot of things that a lot of people can eat, like animal foods. I get sick eating that stuff. That's why I became a vegan, not because I don't want to hurt the little animals, but because I can't afford to get sick eating them. So I don't miss not eating animal foods because it's been so long. My God, you know. How can I miss it now? It's a little late. I only eat a small amount of eggs because I have to, but I don't handle it very well, so I keep it really, 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 really diluted down. A handful of egg noodles in a pot full of vegan noodles, you know, like wheat or rice, um, and potatoes and vegetables and quinoa and, you know, different things thrown in. Um, but I just can't handle animal foods. So it's hard for me to figure out how to stay healthy and not be bitter and not be cranky and not lose my heart over anything. You know, when I was younger, I put heart first, and brain was I couldn't care less. You know, apparently I was born with a strong intellect, but I never bothered to make use of it because I felt I never had to. I never had to prove anything to anybody. I didn't have to accomplish anything. I had no motivation whatsoever to accomplish or do anything in life because I knew all I needed to do was to grow up, and I have yet to do that. You know, in terms of character development, grow. But I didn't have to accomplish anything. Now, only due to stress, do I feel like, oh, I gotta figure out free energy and fix my car and prove myself to everybody. You know, it's only because of stress that drives me. Stressful memories that I'm bitter about forgetting about and forgiving myself having gone through them that makes it difficult for me to let go of that type of stressful motivating factor and just be at ease and be at peace with myself like I was a decade ago. I was very happy. A very happy camper. Um, so if there's something I can eat that helps me get over my bitterness, which just happens to be bitter itself, then I just have to find techniques to make it easy. Along with, I need, of course, the motivation and the new habit to try to drive me to do it. But it has to be easy, because if it's not easy, I don't keep anything up. If it's not easy, I drop it after a couple times. I don't strain at healthy habits very much. It's the unhealthy workaholic habit that I strain plenty of, and I have to loosen up on a bit if I'm going to live a happy life from this point forward, which has been elusive to me for the last 9 years, almost a decade, or 8 years, 5 years, seven. I want to say about 7 years. I started going sour. Yeah, it's been 7 years. It's a long time. And it's just gotten worse, and it's been, you know, sometimes a little brighter, sometimes a little not so bright. It's been hard. Um, so, you know, I tried cocoa powder for the last several weeks or days. And then, of course, it's very hard to take cocoa without taking sugar with it because it is bitter, but lemon cannot redeem it. And salt does not redeem it. It really needs sugar. I mean, the way people take cocoa, sweetened, is the only way to take it. But with MSM, you don't have to add sugar. I mean, I only add juice and applesauce to the cereal to make that taste something not so much like I'm eating straw, because I don't like, or wood chips, you know. It's a kind of a blend between wood chip flavor and straw of what you could imagine. Because it's no fun eating bran for cereal for breakfast or lunch, actually. That's the first meal of the day until dinner. So I'm like fasting for the rest of the day. I had some bread with it, but I mean, anyway. So this is my suggestion, and a lot of backstory, probably more than you could probably hope for. And I hope it helps you. I don't know. It's helped me so far today, and I hope tomorrow I keep it up. I've been keeping salt up a lot, and to help me take salt, I get potassium salt, substitute salt from the market, just regular potassium, new salt or whatever it's called. It's really cheap, and I don't use much, just a little bit of that, and then I can take as much sea salt as I want without worrying about hypertension, you know, bothering me. But it's not enough to salt my food. I still needed something else, and I've been taking lemon on my food for ages. I really like it, and I know about it because it's good for the liver, and I got liver problems. So, but MSM is a whole nother deal. It's it's not a habit pattern that I'm accustomed to, and I always did it all by itself and couldn't understand, oh God, this tastes ghastly. How am I going to take this stuff? It's so good for you, but it tastes so ghastly. Well, now I know how to do it. So I hope that enlightens you, and it certainly has been thought-provoking for me. And until we tune in again next time, have a good life.